The US-Israeli war in Iran has entered its fourth week, but now Iran has shown that it is not keen on backing down, and its retaliatory strikes seem to have surprised its enemies because of their power and their supposed range. On Friday, Iran reportedly targeted the British-American military base on the Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia. Iran has denied responsibility for the strike, but Western analysts are worried about what such a strike could mean. Diego Garcia is about 4,000 kilometers away from the Iranian mainland, which means that if Iran did conduct the attack, it would put most of Europe in missile range as well. Meanwhile, on Saturday night, Iranian missiles tore through Israeli defenses and struck the settlements of Dimona and Arad. Israel says that at least 175 people were injured in the Iranian strikes in the aftermath of the attack. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now wants more Western nations to join the US-Israeli war in Iran.
If you want proof that Iran endangers the entire world, the last 48 hours have given it. They fired an intercontinental ballistic missile on Diego Garcia. That's 4,000 kilometers. I've been warning all the time. They have now the capacity to reach deep into Europe. They already have fired on a European country, Cyprus. They are putting everyone in their sights. And it's time to see the leaders of the rest of the countries join up. I'm happy to say that I can see some of them beginning to move in that direction, but more is needed.
Netanyahu claims that Iran did attack Diego Garcia, and he says that because Iranian missiles almost hit the British-American military base on the island, that means that Iran is a threat to all of Europe. This includes major European capitals such as Paris, Berlin and London. However, British cabinet officials maintain that the country is not being dragged into the war with Iran, and they say that there is no evidence that Iran plans to attack Europe.
The Minister has made clear we will provide defensive support against these reckless Iranian threats, but we have not been and we continue not to be involved in offensive action, and we want to see the swiftest possible resolution. As he's made clear, we will not be drawn into a wider conflict because we think we need to see as swift as possible resolution in the UK national interest, but also to support regional stability.
London. I'm not aware of any assessment at all that they are even trying to target Europe, let alone that they could if they tried. But even if they did, we have the necessary military capability to defend this country, and defending the British national interest is precisely why we're taking part in collective defensive action across the Middle East.
Reid says that there is no evidence that Iran is trying to target Europe or that it has the capability to do so, even if it wanted to. He added that even if Iran did try and strike, the UK can defend itself militarily. For now, most American and Israeli allies have refrained from joining the war in Iran, despite pressure from Trump and Netanyahu. Will the possibility of long-range Iranian missile capabilities change Europe's stance, or will they continue to wait and watch? And to discuss more, joining us live from London is Mr. Chris Doyle. He's the Director for Council for Arab-British Understanding and the current lead spokesperson for the organization. Mr. Doyle, good to see you, and thank you very much for making time for us. Let's start with the explosive details by former Director of the National Counterterrorism Center. His name is Joe Kent. He says, and I'll quote him, all 18 of America's intelligence agencies agreed Iran had no capacity to develop a nuclear bomb, but Israel was telling us they would be able to assemble 10 bombs in 2 weeks. How damaging is this revelation for Trump?
I think it's damaging for Trump, but also for the credibility of the Israeli authorities as well. I don't think there's any evidence that Iran was within 2 weeks or even 2 months of acquiring a bomb. I think significant damage was almost certainly carried out in the Israeli and American strikes of June last year. So I think this is all, and we've seen it so often before with Iraq and other countries as well, it's all part of the drumbeats of war to try to lure other countries into joining the United States and Israel at a time that they are finding it so difficult to actually find an exit strategy and exit out of a war that has proved to be extremely costly, that many of us predicted would be the way.
Do you actually think that Israel and the United States have an exit strategy for this war?
Not at all. There's no evidence of one. I think you have to deal with them separately, because I don't think they necessarily have the same aims and objectives. I think President Trump is more desperate to end this war. He is not so concerned, I think, by leaving and having an Iranian regime that is wounded, albeit still dangerous. For Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think he wants all in. He wants to ensure that this regime is completely finished. I think he would like to see Iran weaken for decades to come. And I don't think the Israeli Prime Minister is too concerned about the damage that is inflicted on Gulf Arab states, for example, like the Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait and Saudi. This is not his concern, but it is for the United States, because the US has major business interests there. President Trump himself would like to see lots of deals going forward with those states. But there is no real clear sign of what victory for either of these countries would be. So how can you have an exit strategy? I think for Trump, he probably needs to see the Strait of Hormuz open in order to get out, and that's why he's made this quite chilling 48-hour warning that he would instruct US bombers to take out Iranian power stations in the event that the strait was not open. Now, that's a war crime. It's a collective punishment of a civilian population who, of course, needs electricity and power for the basics of everyday life.
Mr. Doyle, let's talk about the Prime Minister of Israel, because he claims that Iran bombed Diego Garcia. Iran has denied bombing Diego Garcia. He also claims that he warned European nations that Iran is targeting them, and this has not been proven by anyone. And now Europe is fighting back. It says this war is not for them. They're not joining the war because they do not understand the goals of this war. What are the public saying in Europe? You're in London. What are the officials saying about this war?
Well, what one can see is there's a huge amount of talk about it in the morning talk shows, chat shows in Britain and in the media, which has got a disproportionately large amount of war hawks involved in writing and broadcasting for them. You can have a look, go back to 28th of February to see how many commentators were highly in favour of this war, when really only about 17% of the British public are actually in favour of going to war. We won't know as yet, of course, if that changes with the claim that Iranian missiles could potentially reach London. For me, I don't think it necessarily changes anything, in fact. I think that we've known that Iran is a risk. It is a regime with an appalling record. But the real question is about whether this war will be able to make the region, make the world any more secure, whether it will actually be able to deliver some of the changes that people have talked about. And I think that is really highly dubious. And I think, as the British government believes, that it is far more productive to have continued with the negotiations to reach a internationally agreed treaty with Iran on its nuclear weapons facilities, even its ballistic missile facilities.
Mr. Chris Doyle, it's good to see you. We'll have to end this discussion here. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.